Oh my! My scream echoed through the air.
Honestly, how many times do I have to say it? When the glass is empty, pour the beer right away.
Oh dear, the glass is broken. Isabella, clean it up quickly.
Honestly, when will you grow up?
This is insane. Why are these people so nonchalant about doing such things? My name is Isabella, a 26-year-old housewife. I've always been slow-witted. From the moment I entered elementary school, I realized I was falling behind. I was scolded by teachers countless times. Why couldn't I do such simple things? My parents are neither particularly enthusiastic about education nor completely neglectful. When my test scores were poor, they'd say, "Do better next time," and when it continued, they suggested, "How about going to a cram school?" I tried attending a cram school once, but the teacher's pace was too fast for me to keep up. Gradually, I became reluctant to go, and I started spending time at the park instead. However, I was soon caught when the cram school contacted my parents because I hadn't been showing up. I ended up quitting the cram school. That's when things started to go downhill for me. The moment I gave up, realizing that nothing could be done, everything became inconsequential, and I started hanging out with a bad crowd. Middle school was the worst time. Every day, we loitered at a convenience store, getting into cigarettes and alcohol. I'd leave home after my parents went to sleep and return before they woke up. That cycle continued. As a result, attending regular classes during the day was impossible, and I spent most days just sleeping. It was like going to school only for lunch. Later, I managed to get into a high school where you could enroll just by writing your name, but I had no motivation to study and dropped out. At that time, I left home after endless arguments with my parents, creating a rift between us. Since then, I've been working tirelessly at part-time jobs while living alone. But as I started working and living independently, I realized how much my parents had supported my life. The chores my mother did as a matter of course weren't actually ordinary, and my father going to work every day wasn't a given. I understood how I had taken their support for granted and how naive I had been. Still, back then, due to a mix of pride and embarrassment, I couldn't bring myself to visit my parents and apologize. After that, I resolved to live earnestly. In between my part-time jobs, I revisited the basics of compulsory education. 3 years later, I passed the GED exam and decided to take the evening courses at a university. Somehow, I managed to scrape by with the minimum passing score. I was overjoyed. Although it was a lower-ranked university, it's incredible that someone like me, who used to be foolish, could go to university. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I wrote a letter to my family, sharing only the news that I had been accepted to an evening university without revealing my address. From then on, I continued my life, working during the day and attending university at night. The evening university attracted a diverse crowd. There were men in suits who perhaps came after work, as well as older women who wanted to relearn. Interacting with these people allowed me to understand various perspectives, and I consider it a valuable experience. After graduating from university, I landed an office job at a small company. If my old friends saw me now, they'd surely be surprised. My life had changed significantly. And my life took another turn, a meeting with Michael. Michael was a senior colleague at the same company. He was the one who taught me the ropes when I joined. Eventually, he started inviting me out for meals, and our relationship naturally blossomed. 3 years later, he proposed, and we got married. He wanted me to focus on our home, so I decided to leave my job. I never dreamed that the rebellious girl I once was would end up leaving her job for marriage. When it came to informing my parents about the marriage, I could only do so through a letter. After all, we had parted ways in a heated argument back then, and I feared they might no longer care about me. Following our marriage, I ended up living with my in-laws in their home. My husband was the eldest son, and it was customary for the in-laws to live together. During the marriage introduction, I didn't have a negative impression of my in-laws, and there was a part of me that craved family love, so I agreed to cohabitate without much thought. Little did I know that this would mark the beginning of a living hell. I began experiencing severe mistreatment from my in-laws and husband.
Isabella! Your cleaning is far too slow. Bathroom, toilet, weeding the garden. Do it more efficiently.
Hey! I asked for tea. How long do I have to wait? Unbelievable!
Hey, for breakfast, I prefer bread.
I'll have yogurt. Mornings are for yogurt and fruit.
My in-laws and husband were shamelessly demanding. Despite this, I clung to the strange notion that I needed their approval to be accepted by this family and in this house. So, I continued to be meek. Unfortunately, this only fueled their audacity even further.
Isabella, give me a massage.
Ah, excellent. I'll be next.
Well then, after Dad, maybe I'll get one too.
One person, 30 minutes each, for a total of an hour and a half of massages. And afterward, I brewed tea and served store-bought dessert to everyone, as if I were a housekeeper. I gradually began to suspect that I was being used for their convenience by my in-laws and husband. As a result, imperfections started creeping into the household chores I had previously executed flawlessly, and my in-laws and husband began blaming me for those shortcomings. Their tyranny escalated, and before I knew it, my in-laws and husband had turned into terrible manipulative individuals. Oh my! My scream echoed through the air.
Honestly, how many times do I have to say it? When the glass is empty, pour the beer right away.
He slammed the table as he spoke. The impact caused a glass to fall at my feet.
Oh dear, the glass is broken. Isabella, clean it up quickly.
Honestly, when will you grow up?
This was madness. How could these people be so callous? I had reached my breaking point. I wanted to go home. But where? To my mom's place? Yet, I was afraid. Would they accept me? Still, I knew that remaining in this house would drive me mentally unstable, so I made up my mind and left.
Where are you going?
Leave her alone. She's been disowned by her parents, so this is the only place she has to go.
Despite my husband's words, I ignored him and left my in-laws' home. And after approximately 10 years, I arrived in front of my parents' home. As I hesitated to press the intercom button, a voice came from behind.
Isabella.
It was my mother's voice. Mom. The moment I saw my mother, tears welled up uncontrollably. She was also crying, and she embraced me tightly. She welcomed me into the house, and there, I met my father after a long time. Holding back tears, he said, "Welcome back." I felt overjoyed. My parents didn't harbor any resentment toward me. Even after I had left without a word, they warmly received me after a decade apart. Awkwardly, I recounted everything that had happened since I left. Both my father and mother praised me, saying, "You've done well." They were pleased with my letter updates as well. As for the matter with my in-laws and husband, They were furious on my behalf. They advised me to divorce that person without hesitation. A few hours later, I received a message from my husband.
Where are you now? It's time to come back.
I replied, I'm currently at my parents' house. I won't return to that home anymore, so let's get a divorce. Almost immediately, my husband called. His angry voice made it hard to understand what he was saying, but it seemed he wanted to come here to persuade me. My parents suggested, it's a good opportunity to meet face to face, so we decided to invite my in-laws and husband over. When my in-laws arrived at my parents' home, they unleashed a torrent of insults fueled by anger. Back when I lived with them, I was somewhat fragile due to my longing for family love. However, now that I had reconciled with my own parents, that vulnerability had disappeared. Without succumbing to their verbal abuse, I firmly handed them the divorce papers, saying, it's pointless no matter what you say. Please sign for the divorce. In the end, my husband reluctantly signed the papers, rolling his eyes. Finally, I was free from those nightmarish days. And in the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed since the divorce. It was a holiday, and I was relaxing at my parents' home as usual. Suddenly, the intercom buzzed. Who could it be on a Saturday morning? Since I was closest to the front door, I decided to answer. But then the intercom buzzed again. Hello? Oh, excuse me. Wait, what? When I opened the door, there stood my ex-husband and in-laws, the same people I had parted ways with 5 years ago. Why? How? My ex-husband grinned and said,
Hey there! You doing well? I figured you'd calm down by now. I'll forgive you, so come back, ha!
What are you talking about? My shout drew my father's attention, and he joined me at the entrance. He, too, was surprised by their presence. My ex-husband continued smirking.
You're probably still a lonely single woman, right? We'll take you back.
And then my ex-father-in-law, audaciously, chimed in.
Grandmother needs care too. Let's discuss the future.
Their nonsensical statements made me burst into laughter. Impossible.
Why are you laughing?
My ex-father-in-law snapped.
Exactly. How dare you, a lowly woman, be so cheeky?
My ex-mother-in-law chimed in. I replied. Well, I was just thinking, who's speaking from a high horse here? My ex-husband retorted.
What? Who do you think you're being cheeky with?
He seemed to believe that his forceful tone, reminiscent of our cohabitation days, would sway me. Little did he know that over these 5 years, I had regained the determination I had as a former delinquent, a strong woman who wouldn't be shaken. Huh? Obviously, I'm talking to you. This abusive jerk. My ex-husband and in-laws stuttered, taken aback by my intensity. Suddenly, my voice surprised my mother, who approached, saying,
Isabella, calm down. The baby just woke up.
I apologized while cradling my daughter. Oops, sorry.
A baby?
I explained. I've remarried and have a child now. So, there's no chance of reconciliation with you. Not that I intend to, anyway.
You're kidding.
My ex-husband, clearly frustrated by the lack of compliance, retorted and kicked the flower bed outside the front door. I hurried inside, ensuring my daughter's safety, while my ex-husband attempted to force his way in. My father stepped in to stop him. In the next moment, my ex-husband let out a cry of pain.
Ouch!
Noah. Noah was my current husband. It seemed he had returned from his night shift just in time. Noah twisted my ex-husband's arm.
What are you doing?
You! What the hell? Let go!
My ex-father-in-law chimed in.
Release my son! I'll call the police!
Noah replied.
Huh? I am the police.
Ah!
Noah turned to me.
Isabella, who are these people?
Ex-husband and in-laws. They suddenly showed up, trying to force a reconciliation. When I resisted, my ex-husband got angry and kicked the flower bed.
Wait, hey. You don't need to explain so clearly.
Noah declared.
They're completely out of line. I'll call for backup.
This is ridiculous.
Soon after, a police car arrived, and my ex-in-laws and ex-husband were taken away. The neighbors watched like curious onlookers, and my ex-in-laws and ex-husband hung their heads in embarrassment as they got into the police car. And the reason my ex-in-laws and ex-husband visited me was as follows. It turns out that they had been squandering Michael's grandfather's inheritance and grandmother's pension, indulging in gambling and a life of luxury. However, when his grandmother's health deteriorated, and she needed care, her pension was being used to cover the costs of her care facility. So, they decided to call me back and try to take advantage of my family's wealth. They probably assumed that if they shouted at me, I would comply with their demands. They completely underestimated me. Upon learning that I had remarried a police officer, my ex-in-laws and ex-husband likely decided never to involve themselves with me again. By the way, let me share how I ended up marrying a police officer. During my evening university days, I became close friends with a woman in her 50s who was in the same seminar. Even after graduation, we continued to meet up for drinks regularly. After my divorce from my ex-husband, she suggested that I meet her nephew, Noah. We hit it off, and that's how we ended up getting married. Life is unpredictable, and I never imagined finding happiness through such connections and bonds. Moving forward, I plan to enjoy each day while nurturing a good relationship with my husband, parents, and watching my daughter grow.
How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.